Now let's talk about something that's going to plague everybody, which is memory budgets and your CPU and all of those finite resources that are totally going to go and screw you in the end. So the first thing to do, before you even open up the profiler, before you even start looking at the CPU, when you're in the design phase of the game, is to probably argue for as many SPUs or as much of the CPU or as much of a budget of actual living memory as you possibly can. And with Rocksmith 2014, because it's an audio game, you know, my audio team had a huge advantage of which we could say like, no, we really actually need these following things. And especially when it comes to CPU, it's very, very important to keep it like nowhere spiking the top, to have an experience that's completely smooth the whole way through. Because the thing is, visual glitches, like a couple of them, little by little, they can go and people won't catch up on it. But audio glitches, anyone can hear. So let's talk about how actually the audio team actually optimized all this stuff. So when we were putting it in. When we were putting in like all the instruments and all the sounds and stuff like that, at first we were just plugging them in and throwing on some generic compression settings and not thinking about it that much. But when we actually went through and optimized, the benefits that we got were tremendous. Vorbis especially is very, very good. And depending on your setup, you can get away with Vorbis murder. So a lot of the instruments that we actually have in there, because we have a whole keyboard, right, and it's sampling each individual note on the keyboard or on the guitar or on the drum set or on the bass, for example. And because you have this range, you realize like, oh, if I just have like one sample and it's a low sample, I can actually have a very, like, arguably pathetically low Vorbis setting, and it's going to sound perfectly fine because it's actually playing with a bunch of other low Vorbis settings that then are going to sound wonderful together. We were able to optimize these instruments tremendously. To give you an example, guitars uncompressed in their uncompressed wave format, I think they were like 48K. They weren't even like 96 or anything crazy like that. They came in around 3 gigs. We were able with Vorbis to optimize all those little bits and just trimming it down, especially with the sampler editor too, trimming it down to exactly what you need. We were able to get all of them under 9 megabytes a piece. That's such a powerful tool to use. Another powerful tool to use is the profiler. The profiler is going to be your best friend. It's absolutely insane, all the information that it gives you. But frequently, when you see bugs, the first thing you go to is the profiler and really dig down and see like, okay, with session mode this happened a lot where in the production phase, like some instruments would be queuing before others or they'd be changing sections at the wrong time. And it was really hard for the programmers to figure out what was going on because they didn't have all the tools at their advantage. But with Wwise, we're able to dig in, run a capture log, and then say, okay, this MIDI note played to this instrument and this random container chose this sample and it played at exactly this time and the actual cue came here from the RTPC, which means that it was a half a second behind, which means that we are running X frames behind because we're running out of CPU and it's an optimization that's required here. It's an incredibly powerful tool for not just you to find your own bugs and not just your own audio bugs, but to actually be able to bring that information back to the programmers to help them figure out what they need to do to ultimately get beautiful audio, right? That's the goal.
So I've worked 7 years across all kinds of different platforms, from console to PC and several different mobile devices. And one thing that I find time and again using Wwise is that whether I'm working on a AAA title or a mobile game played on a touch device, I don't have to change the way that I think about implementation. I can do the same things and invoke the same techniques that I would on a big budget game that I do for a game that's on a smaller platform. And to me, what that means is that really the tool is in control of your creativity. And you're not limited necessarily by the constraints of the platform to be creative. And for me, Wwise is a perfect example of something that enables you to apply these techniques no matter your target platform and really squeeze the most out of it. the ability to tweak to a very fine degree and optimize for each of the different platforms in Wwise means that you can create a project once and then use that project across multiple platforms. The ability to link and unlink a project property for a various platform gives you the opportunity to say, you know, on this one we can have 10 variations. It's gonna fit in memory, and we're gonna do it. And when we go to port it to mobile, we feel secure that it's gonna be as easy as disabling WAV files or disabling DSP and optimizing it to make sure that it runs on that platform. In a day long ago, you would have had to branched your project, copy and paste it across, maybe scrub through text files to perform these kind of optimizations. But having it all within a project means that the same thing that you've been working with, the same paradigm you've been living in, the same environment that you've created for your game is the same place where you're going to make these optimization changes based on your target platform. And so it really is powerful to have that all together because it keeps you in the same headspace. And that's an important thing. You don't want to be going between different ways of working if staying in the moment with one way does everything you need.
Performance and memory budgets, profiling.
Yeah, we were pretty lucky on Xbox One because Peggle 2 being a more casual game didn't use as much resources as say something like Rise or a really large game. So we had a pretty big budget that we could dedicate to audio, which we went crazy with. And I would even say that I didn't have to profile very much for memory during the process on the Xbox One game because everything works like a charm, and I tend to, if I need to, if it's working, then we're good and I move on to something else. However, when we've ported to Xbox 360, making that same project fit into Xbox 360 has been a challenge and required some work. And for that, having profiling ability to be able to look deeply into what's happening with our different various memory points and streams and voices and signal processing and everything like that has been essential to be able to make educated and smart decisions about where to tailor down the content to fit on the box. So I think that our overall quality can maintain a very high standard, even though we have to make some economizations.
Can you give me examples?
Budgeting and performance have become very easy with Wwise's profile setup. I shipped a number of games on the Nintendo Wii, which has an extremely tight budget. Usually I had somewhere around the realm of 3.8 megs of static memory at any one time, and that's not much. So it becomes very critical to know within kilobytes where you are. And with Wwise's profiling, I could always see exactly where things are. I could really be finite about how I convert things, about how I load things. I could always see exactly what was happening at all times connected to the actual platform. Now that we're on a PC game with Lich and Battle Mage, my memory issue is gone. I kind of have more memory than I could ever use, but the performance issues are still there as we've really pushed things with convolution reverbs, with some 3D positioning plugins, and just sheer number of voices. So being able to profile and quickly see like, oh, I had a source starvation here, or wait a second, why do I have 2,000 registered objects right now? To see that stuff on the fly, connected to your actual product, is a pretty amazing tool. The other thing is I can remote into anyone in our offices running game and see what's going on in their machines, which has been amazing for debug as well. So.